I'm 42, married for 19 years, and we have a 17-year-old son. Our life was pretty typical. Suburban home, long commutes, soccer practices, occasional arguments about money, but all of that changed 2 weeks ago. And now I can't sleep, I barely eat, and I find myself staring at my family like I don't even know who they are anymore. It started when my son, Tyler, brought home his new girlfriend. He'd mentioned her a couple of times, said her name was Eliza, that she transferred to his school last semester, and that she was cool but mysterious. I didn't think much of it at the time. First high school relationships are rarely anything serious. When he finally invited her over for dinner, I expected the usual: a shy teenage girl, awkward small talk, maybe some hovering around each other in the living room. What I didn't expect was to feel like the ground had just dropped out from beneath me the second I opened the door, because the girl standing looked exactly like my sister. Not just similar or kind of familiar, I mean exactly like her. Same long brown hair with a reddish tint, same narrow nose, same awkward half smile, even the same nervous habit, brushing her thumb across her knuckles when she's unsure what to say. I hadn't seen that in decades. Why did it hit me so hard? Because my sister Evelyn went missing when she was 17 years old, and we never found her. I didn't say anything during dinner. I couldn't. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold my fork. My husband, Dan, kept giving me strange looks, like he thought I was going to faint. Tyler, of course, was oblivious, smiling, showing off, trying way too hard to impress Eliza. And Eliza herself was polite, soft-spoken, almost too but every time she laughed or shifted in her seat, I caught glimpses of Evelyn, and here's the part that's eating me alive. When I finally asked Eliza where she was from, trying to get a sense of who she was, she paused. Only for half a second. But it was there. That hesitation. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. She said, "I'm originally from up north, but I don't really remember much before age 7. I almost dropped my glass, because Evelyn disappeared when she was 17. That was 25 years ago. Eliza says she's 17 now. That math doesn't work. Or does it? Because as I sat there trying to calm myself down, I looked across the table at my husband, and his face was white, like he'd seen a ghost. That night, after Eliza left, I waited for Dan to say something, anything, but he didn't. He barely touched his dinner, didn't help clean up, and went straight to the bedroom without a word. I followed him in, heart racing, mind spinning with a million impossible thoughts. I asked him point blank if something was wrong. He just shook his head and said he was tired. But he wasn't tired. He was scared. He tossed and turned all night, mumbling in his sleep. I couldn't make out everything, but I swear I heard him whisper Evelyn's name, more than once. I lay there frozen, heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. At 3:12 a.m., I got out of bed, went to the bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out my phone. I opened my old Dropbox folder. It's full of family photos, most I hadn't looked at in years, but I knew exactly which one I was looking for. It was the last photo ever taken of Evelyn. She was 17, wearing a gray hoodie and sitting on the swing in our backyard, smiling at something off camera, probably me. I remember taking that photo. It was 2 weeks before she vanished. I stared at the photo for a long time. Then I opened Tyler's Instagram, found Eliza's tagged profile, opened her latest post from 3 days ago. Side by side, the resemblance wasn't just uncanny, it was haunting. Like someone had taken that photo of Evelyn and aged it in reverse. Same jawline, same chin, same exact dimple in her right cheek. And the eyes. God, the eyes. It was like looking at my sister through a time loop. I took screenshots, sent them to myself. Then I zoomed in on the necklace Eliza was wearing in one of her pictures. It was a small silver locket, oval-shaped. Nothing fancy, but I knew it immediately, because my sister had the same one. In fact, it was custom-made. My mom had it engraved for Evelyn's 16th birthday. Inside there were 2 tiny photos. One of our parents, one of me and Evelyn on the beach when we were little. I hadn't seen that locket in 25 years. I wanted to throw up. I didn't sleep at all that night. Just sat there in the living room, lights off, going through every memory I could dig up of Evelyn. The weeks before she disappeared, the arguments with our parents, the way she'd been acting distant, and the night she vanished. How Dan was the one who comforted me the most. Back when we were just dating, how he was there every day, helping search, making posters, organizing volunteers. He was so supportive, so present. But now I wonder, was that guilt? Because here's the thing I haven't told you yet. Back then, Dan and Evelyn weren't exactly strangers. They were closer than I ever realized. And I think that connection never ended. Not really. The next morning, I couldn't pretend anymore. I needed answers. Dan was already in the kitchen making coffee, trying to act normal. He didn't even look up when I walked in. I waited until Tyler had left for school before I said anything. I didn't plan some dramatic confrontation. I just asked quietly if he remembered Evelyn's old necklace. He froze mid-stir, didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then he said, "Not really," without meeting my eyes. That's when I knew for sure. He was lying. I told him I saw it. Around Eliza's neck. The exact same one. I didn't accuse, didn't yell. I just said it. His hands were shaking. He spilled coffee on the counter and started wiping it up furiously, like that mess suddenly mattered more than what I was saying. I pressed harder, asked him if he saw the resemblance between Eliza and Evelyn. He finally snapped and said I was being paranoid and trying to relive old trauma, that I was looking for Evelyn in every stranger's face. That would have hurt if I hadn't seen his search history the night before. After he'd gone to bed, I checked his laptop. He hadn't even cleared the tabs. DNA test kits. How accurate are ancestry matches. How to request old police case files. He was digging too, just not telling me. And then the real crack opened. I went back into the Dropbox folder and scrolled way back to the year Evelyn disappeared. There was a video I hadn't watched in decades. It was taken at a birthday party, maybe 2 months before she vanished. It showed Evelyn dancing in the backyard with friends, laughing like everything in her life was normal. And at one point, the camera panned across a group of teens sitting by the fence. Dan was there. What chilled me was the way he was looking at her. Not like a future brother-in-law, not like a friend, something else. I remembered my mom once mentioning that Evelyn had a secret boyfriend, someone she refused to name. She said they fought about it constantly. My parents didn't approve of the relationship, but Evelyn wouldn't back down. They thought it might have been someone older, like Dan. I never thought much of it back then, but now, it fits. Dan was 20 when Evelyn was 17. They wouldn't have needed to keep it a secret if he wasn't involved. I started wondering, what if she didn't run away? What if she didn't disappear? What if someone made her disappear? That night, I opened Eliza's Instagram again, looked through every photo, noticed something new this time. In a few of the older posts, months before she met Tyler, there were pictures of her with an older woman. The captions were vague: family trip, visiting Nana, that kind of thing. But the older woman? I recognized her, not from our family, from Evelyn's past, her childhood neighbor, the woman who used to babysit us. She moved away right after Evelyn vanished, and now she's showing up in photos with Eliza? Something isn't adding up. At this point, I don't know what's scarier, the idea that Eliza is somehow related to Evelyn, or the idea that Dan already knows exactly who she is. I didn't tell Dan what I was planning. I couldn't. If he was hiding something, I needed to stay a step ahead. For the first time in our marriage, I was deliberately keeping secrets from my husband, and the worst part? I didn't even feel guilty. The first thing I did was contact the woman from Eliza's photos. Her name was Margaret. When we were kids, she lived 3 houses down and used to babysit us during the summers. I hadn't seen or heard from her since the year Evelyn vanished. Everyone just assumed she moved to Florida to be near her son. But now, there she was in Eliza's feed, smiling and holding birthday balloons. I found her number online, called her. It rang 3 times before going to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. 5 minutes later, she called back. At first, I didn't say anything about Eliza. I just told her who I was, that I'd been going through old family photos and remembered her, figured I'd check in. She was quiet at first, confused maybe. Then she said she'd always wondered what happened to us. Her voice cracked a little when I mentioned Evelyn. She said she'd thought about her often, and then she asked, out of nowhere, "Is this about the girl?" My heart stopped. I asked, "What girl?" She went silent, then hung up. I tried calling back, straight to voicemail. That was when I knew. She knew something, and she wasn't the only one keeping things close. Later that night, Tyler and Eliza were hanging out in the basement. I waited until I heard them laughing over some dumb movie. Then I quietly crept into his room. I know how wrong it sounds, going through my own son's things, but I had to. I was desperate. If Eliza was connected to Evelyn somehow, I needed proof. Inside his backpack was a small velvet pouch. Nothing unusual, just something that caught my eye. Inside it was a bracelet, not new. Silver chain, 1 charm, the letter E. It looked familiar, too familiar. I went back to my photo archive and found it, a picture from Evelyn's 15th birthday. She's holding up a small gift box with that same bracelet inside, the letter charm sparkling in the sun. I remember my mom giving it to her, saying, "Every woman needs a signature piece." So how did Eliza have it? I sat on the edge of the bed, shaking. Then I heard the basement door open. Tyler and Eliza were coming back upstairs. I panicked, threw everything back in the bag and got out of the room just in time. My heart was pounding in my ears, but I forced a smile as they passed me in the hallway. Eliza gave me a soft, "Good night," and that same strange smile, one that made my skin crawl. Because now, I wasn't just wondering if she was Evelyn's daughter. I was starting to wonder if she might actually be Evelyn, somehow. I waited until Dan left for work. He's always been protective over the office in the basement. Says it's where he keeps our finances, tax stuff, sensitive paperwork. I never had a reason to question that till now. There's a filing cabinet in the corner, old and scratched up, with a lock that used to seem completely unnecessary. But after everything that's happened this week, it felt like the vault guarding every secret he's ever kept. So I picked it. I watched a few YouTube videos the night before, practiced on Tyler's old diary lock just to make sure I had the feel for it, and to my complete shock, it worked. The lock clicked open in less than 30 seconds. The drawer was packed. Neatly organized folders, color-coded tabs, receipts going back 15 years. At first, it looked like exactly what he claimed. Bank statements, property taxes, old contracts. I almost gave up, but then I noticed a folder at the very back. No label, taped shut. My hands were already trembling, but when I pulled it out and peeled back the tape, something dropped into my lap. It was a photo, old, faded, with a timestamp from 2006. Dan was in it, and so was Evelyn. Only, she wasn't 17. She looked older, probably in her early 20s. Her hair was different, shorter, darker, but it was her. The same eyes, the same crooked smile. And Dan? He wasn't just beside her, he was holding her hand. I dug deeper. There were 4 more photos, all from different years, all showing them together, always in different locations. Small towns, unfamiliar backgrounds. One even had a date stamp from a rental cabin in Vermont, 2008, 2 years after Evelyn supposedly vanished. The final item in the folder was a letter, handwritten. Dan, I'm tired of hiding. If we're going to do this, I need more than promises. I need to know you'll choose me over her. She's your girlfriend, yes, but I'm your future, and I won't be a secret forever. It wasn't signed, but I didn't need it to be. I recognized the handwriting. It was Evelyn's. I don't remember crying. I don't remember standing up. I don't even remember walking up the stairs, but I found myself staring out the front window, gripping that photo so hard it crumpled in my hand. For 25 years, I believed my sister had disappeared, and the man I married, he was with her. He knew. He's always known. I didn't wait. I didn't think. I just got in the car and drove straight to my mother's house. She lives about 40 minutes away, in a little ranch-style place where every single thing still feels like it belongs in the late 90s. The crocheted pillows, the dusty glass figurines, the framed photos that haven't changed position in over a decade. She's lived alone ever since my dad passed, and we talk, occasionally, but not deeply, never about Evelyn. That topic has always been a landmine, but not today. She looked surprised when I showed up unannounced. I didn't even sit down. I took the photos out of my bag and dropped them right on her kitchen table. Her face went pale before her fingers even touched them. She didn't ask where I got them, didn't deny who was in them. She just stared at the top photo, Evelyn and Dan, hand in hand, by some lake I couldn't name. I asked her the question that had been building in my throat all week. Did you know she was alive? She didn't answer. She just sat down and covered her mouth with her hand, tears already starting to fall. That's when I knew. She knew. She'd known for years. I didn't yell. I couldn't. The truth felt too big, too loud already. I just stood there and let her speak. She told me it started with a phone call, a year after Evelyn disappeared. Private number. No hello. Just her voice, saying she was okay, that she was safe, but she wasn't coming back. My mom had begged her to tell them where she was, to come home, to explain why. Evelyn only said one thing. Tell Dan I kept my promise. After that, the calls came once a year. Always the same number. Always on the same date, Evelyn's birthday. Sometimes it was a few minutes, sometimes only a few words. But it was always her. My mom never told the police. Never told my dad. She didn't want to believe her daughter had left. It was easier to let the world think Evelyn was missing than to admit she chose to vanish. And as for Dan, she said she always suspected he knew more than he claimed. But he stayed, married me, had a family, played the role, and after a while, she stopped asking. She told me Evelyn didn't want to be found, that she had unfinished business she couldn't explain. And then my mom looked at me with red-rimmed eyes and whispered something I'll never forget. What if she never left? What if she's been close this whole time? I felt like I couldn't breathe. If Evelyn never really left? If Dan knew that, then who the hell is Eliza? Because she looks exactly like Evelyn, talks like her, smiles like her. But she's 17, exactly the age Evelyn was when she disappeared, and now something darker has crept into my mind, something cold, something I haven't said out loud yet. What if the girl in our house isn't just Evelyn's daughter? What if she is Evelyn? I didn't tell Tyler. I didn't even warn Eliza. I just waited until Saturday morning, when they were still in their lazy weekend routines. Cartoons in pajamas, cereal bowls half full on the coffee table. I walked into the living room and asked Eliza if she could help me with something upstairs. Tyler didn't look up. She said sure, smiling like she always does, like there's nothing wrong in the world. But there is. We sat in my bedroom. I closed the door behind us and pulled out the photo. The one of her, no, of Evelyn, in Vermont, holding Dan's hand. I placed it in front of her on the nightstand. She didn't touch it, didn't ask what it was. just stared at it for a long time. I asked her, straight out, "Who are you, really?" She looked up at me, and for the first time since she walked into our house, her smile dropped. Her face changed just slightly, like a mask being set down, piece by piece. She didn't look confused or scared. She looked tired. I waited. She glanced back at the photo. Her eyes flicked to my face, and then she asked me the strangest question. "Do you believe in memory transference?" I didn't respond. I didn't know what the hell to say. She kept going, quiet, like she wasn't even talking to me anymore. She said sometimes trauma echoes. Sometimes people carry things forward they don't understand. She said she'd always had dreams that didn't belong to her, places she'd never been, people she shouldn't recognize, music she somehow knew the words to before ever hearing it. She thought it was normal, until she turned 17. That was when it got intense. She started drawing faces she'd never seen, writing the same name over and over in the margins of her notebooks. Dan. She said she didn't know why, only that the name came with this strange pull in her chest, like a place you forgot you used to live in, a smell you remember from a house you've never been to. She said she didn't even know who Dan was, not until she met Tyler, not until she walked into our house for the first time. That was when everything came rushing back. Not memories exactly, but impressions and feelings. And then she said something that made my skin crawl. "This house feels like grief." She looked me straight in the eye. "I'm not Evelyn, but something of her is in me." I sat there frozen. Every rational part of my brain was screaming that she was just a strange girl with a flair for theatrics. Maybe she'd seen old pictures somewhere, heard whispers, pieced it all together. But deep down, something else was stirring, something older. Because if Eliza was lying, she was too good at it, too precise. She excused herself a minute later, said she didn't feel well. Tyler followed her to the guest room, concerned. But I couldn't move. I just sat there, staring at the photo, wondering if ghosts can live in flesh, and whether my husband brought one into our home, on purpose. Dan came home early from work. That never happens. He walked into the house like nothing was wrong, but I knew immediately. The way he closed the door too softly, the way he called my name like he already knew where I'd be. I was standing in the kitchen, heart racing, pretending to scroll through my phone like I hadn't just spent the last hour replaying Eliza's words over and over in my head. He didn't say anything at first, just leaned on the counter, eyes locked on mine, and asked where the folder was. I didn't pretend to be confused. What was the point? He sighed, ran a hand through his hair. Then he said, "You weren't supposed to see any of that." I asked him the one question I'd been holding back for days. "Is Eliza Evelyn's daughter?" He didn't answer, not right away. He said that when Evelyn disappeared, she chose to leave, that she told him she was pregnant, that she didn't trust our parents to accept it, or me, that she wanted to disappear, start over, and she begged him to help her. So he did. He said he helped her get out, found her a place to stay with someone she trusted, Margaret, the old neighbor. He kept her secret for a year, then another, until the calls stopped. He said he never saw her again after 2010, that she left a letter, said she couldn't keep hiding, said she was moving far away, and that she was taking the child with her. That child, he claimed, was Eliza. My stomach dropped. "So you're saying she's Evelyn's daughter, which makes her Tyler's cousin?" Dan looked away, didn't deny it, didn't even flinch. I asked him how long he's known Eliza was in Tyler's life. He said he didn't, not at first. But when he saw her, something clicked. He said it was like staring into a past that had been buried alive. But instead of warning me, instead of telling anyone, he watched it unfold, watched his son fall for a girl who might be his own niece, and said nothing. He tried to justify it, said he didn't want to blow up our lives until he was sure, said he was trying to protect us, that he was planning to get a DNA test. I told him it was too late for that, way too late. Then I asked one final thing. "Are you absolutely sure Evelyn is dead?" He looked at me, blinked, hesitated, then said the one thing I didn't expect. "No, I don't think she ever died." I asked why. He swallowed hard. "Because I saw her, 2 weeks ago, outside Eliza's school, just for a second. But it was her. I didn't sleep. I couldn't, not with the image Dan put in my head. My sister, alive, watching from the shadows, circling the edges of our lives like a ghost that never left. I stayed up all night digging through everything I had on Evelyn, yearbooks, old news clippings, police reports, emails from the early 2000s. Every breadcrumb, every shadow. Nothing confirmed she ever died. No body, no conclusive sighting. Just a girl who disappeared and left a hole that swallowed my entire family, until now. Now that hole is walking around in our living room, dating my son, wearing my sister's locket like it belongs to her. Dan? He's unraveling. I caught him outside at 2 a.m., pacing the backyard like he was waiting for someone. He had his phone out, kept checking it, like he was expecting a call. I watched from the upstairs window. He stayed out there for over an hour. I wanted to confront him again, but something stopped me. Something I still can't explain. It was that feeling, the same one I had when Eliza first walked through the door. Like the air had shifted, like someone else was already inside the house. And then, around 4 a.m., I checked the security camera app on my phone. We have one pointed at the front porch. I don't check it often, but last night I just had a feeling. There was a motion alert. Time-stamped 3:18 a.m. I clicked the clip, and there she was. A woman, hood up, standing just beyond the porch light. I couldn't see her face clearly, but I saw her hand. She reached out, just barely, and touched the mailbox, then turned around and walked away. The same hesitant, unsteady walk I remember from when Evelyn would sneak in late after curfew. She didn't knock. She didn't leave anything. She just stood there, watching, like she wanted to come in, but couldn't. I woke Dan up immediately, showed him the footage. His face went white, not shocked, not surprised, more like confirmed. He whispered something, more to himself than to me. She found us. I asked him what that meant. He wouldn't answer, just sat on the edge of the bed, silent, staring at the floor like it might split open. And then it hit me. What if she didn't leave Eliza with Margaret? What if she never really left Eliza at all? What if Evelyn has been close this whole time, pulling strings, watching from the corners, waiting for something? Or someone? Tyler, I don't know what scares me more, the idea that my sister is alive and hiding, or the idea that she's finally ready to come back, and we're not ready for what she's bringing with her. At sunrise, I went outside. I hadn't slept. Dan was still sitting in the dark, holding that photo like it could explain the past 25 years. Eliza and Tyler were still asleep, wrapped up in some illusion that hadn't shattered yet. But I knew, once I opened that mailbox, something would break. I could feel it. The flag was up. I reached in slowly, half expecting nothing. But there was a single envelope. No stamp. No return address. Just one word on the front, written in the exact same looping cursive I hadn't seen since 1999. Sister. My hands went cold. I brought it inside and opened it at the kitchen table. No dramatic buildup. Just one folded sheet of paper, slightly worn, written in blue ink. I read it once, then twice, and a third time because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This is what it said. You always loved answers. So here they are. I didn't run away. I was taken by someone I trusted, someone we trusted, and by the time I realized what had happened, it was too late. He told me no one would believe me, that if I ever came back, I'd ruin your life. I believed him, for years, but he was wrong. You deserved the truth. Eliza is my daughter. I never abandoned her, but I left her somewhere safe until I could come back. I've been waiting for the right time, watching from the outside, but now I see what he's done, how deeply he lied, how much he still hides. I didn't send Eliza to you. She found you on her own. That's how I knew it was time. I'm not here to hurt you, but I'm not leaving again. Tell Dan. I remember everything, and I want my life back. I don't remember crying. I don't remember standing. I just remember the sound of my own breathing, louder than anything else in the room, because now it's all out in the open. Dan didn't help Evelyn disappear. He took her, or maybe not in the dramatic, cinematic way I'd imagined, but in the quiet, coercive way only people who hold power over you can. He isolated her, manipulated her, hid her, and when she broke free, he rewrote the story to look like loyalty. He married me, raised a family with me, all while burying the truth under silence and shame. And now, Evelyn's back. She's watching, closer than ever. I still don't know what Eliza is, if she's carrying echoes of Evelyn or just pieces of the damage left behind, but I do know this. She's in danger, and so is Tyler, and I've been sleeping next to a man I never really knew. I burned the letter, made a copy first, but Dan doesn't know that. He asked if anything was in the mailbox. I told him no, because now I'm done asking questions. Now I'm planning. Now he should be scared. Final reflection. I thought this story was about a missing girl, but it's not. It's about how secrets rot everything they touch, how one lie can echo for decades, how a single act can shatter generations. My sister is alive. My husband's mask has cracked. And my family? It's just beginning to unravel. But this time, I'm not going to let it fall apart in silence. This time, I won't be the one left in the dark. Not again. Not ever.